network security, virtual private networks, point-to-point tunneling protocol and layer 2 tunneling protocol, PPTP and L2TP. That's what we want to cover in this section. PPTP is for sure the most popular VPN solution. It was created many years by Microsoft, 3Com and some other companies. The advantage is that PPTP is very easy to set up. If you have a Microsoft Windows Server 2003, 8, 12, it doesn't matter, it will take literally 5 minutes to set it up. You don't have to know anything about a Microsoft server and you can make it up and running. All you have to do in a Microsoft Windows Server, you have to add a role, and there are two things that you should actually do. First is to add the network policy and access server, and second is remote access server. When you add routing and remote access server, you can enable VPN with 2 clicks. It's very easy, it works. Simple, easy to set up. There are some problems with PPTP, however. It is not considered secure anymore. We should avoid using PPTP because there are a lot of well-known security issues with this protocol. That's why people moved away from it a few years ago, and almost everything has been replaced in the last couple of years with IPsec and especially SSL VPNs. PPTP is still an option, especially if you have a device that does not support anything else. If you go, for instance, for a Linksys router or an ASUS router, that might be the only option. An old Draytec router, that might be the only feature from VPNs that will be available for you. If you use a long password and it's a temp solution, it's not that bad. Still, you should avoid using PPTP and move to more secure solutions like IPsec and SSL. That is a screenshot from an ASUS router showing you how easy it is to enable PPTP service. Literally all you have to do is check that box, create a pool of IP addresses for your clients. As you can see, it will support up to 10 connections. Create a local username and password. That's it. Easy, job's done. Then all you have to do in, for instance, Windows or on your phone, almost all phones will have a built-in client for PPTP and L2TP. That's why this protocol has been so popular in the last, 10 years. The same applies to DDWRT. It's an alternative firmware for many Linksys routers. You have a PPTP server. However, this router will support, for instance, OpenVPN, which is much more secure. That is PPTP. Very easy to set up. You should avoid using it if possible. L2TP is another tunneling protocol that can support VPNs. L2TP does not provide encryption, and that's why we combine that with IPsec. L2TP was created by Microsoft and Cisco, and it is not a very popular remote support solution. Most people go for IPsec clients or SSL. Still, on some devices it is a good option. I am going to show you an L2TP remote VPN on a Zyzo USG firewall. I'll show you how it was set up and we'll try and connect to it from a Windows PC. L2TP with IPsec is really secure and it is an option that you can use. That's Zyzo. I will connect and show you that in a moment. This is just a screenshot showing you L2TP VPN connection settings. Before we go to L2TP, I want to show you PPTP on a Draytec router. There are 2, maybe 3 things that you have to do to make it happen. First of all, you have to make sure it is enabled. As you can see, this router supports PPTP, IPsec, L2TP and SSL. That is a Draytec 2925. Then we go to PPP setup, we go for encryption standards and we create a pool of IP addresses. Because this is a remote VPN configuration, we need an IP address. A new IP address will be assigned to our laptop. We'll see that in action in a few moments when I connect to the Zyzo USG firewall using L2TP. It makes sense to create a local user as well and give him permissions to connect to that router. Really easy to set up. I am connected to the firewall. As you can see on the screen, there are 3 options: IPsec, SSL and L2TP. We are interested in L2TP. Of course, it is already set up. We don't have to do that. I just want to show you what's inside. VPN connection, that's just a name. Here is a pool of IP addresses because that's what I said. We need an IP address for a remote user. Allowed users, you can lock it down. That is my local account that was created on this firewall. As I mentioned, L2TP will not give you any encryption. We have to combine that with IPsec. That's why I created an IPsec VPN connection profile over here, and I specified what algorithms we want to use. Of course, I decided to go for strong solutions because it makes sense. However, I allowed things like 3DES as well if an end device does not support AES. That's it. That's how you set up L2TP and PPTP. Now I will connect to a laptop. We'll show you how to enable PPTP, L2TP on a Windows 8 PC. I am connected to the laptop now. What we want to do, we want to set up an L2TP tunnel. We want to connect to the USG 50 firewall remotely. I'll show you the logs and how everything is going to be negotiated. What we have to do, we have to set up a new connection. We go to Network and Sharing Center, and here we have an option to set up a new connection. We want to connect to a VPN. We click Next. We want to use our internet connection. In most cases, we don't use dial-up connections anymore. Here is the internet address. That's my IP address. You can change the name. Most people keep the IP address. It makes sense. I don't want to remember that. I want to create it now. If that was PPTP, in most cases, If that would be enough to connect. L2TP, we use IPsec. That's why we have to specify a pre-shared key that I set up on the firewall as well. We go back to network settings. As you can see, we have a new connection here. We go to properties. I'll show you a few options here. Security, you will have a list of all available protocols that Windows 8 can recognize. If you leave it like this, it will try and negotiate. It will start from the most secure one and will go down the list. I know I use L2TP, that's why I can change it. In security, one more thing, we have to specify our pre-shared key. If you use certificates, then you leave it like that. If it is a home network or a small company, you will have a pre-shared key. I'll type it for you here. That's done. One more thing that it is really important to understand, if we go to Options and Advanced, it makes sense to untick that box. This is a very, very important feature and option. If you leave it like this, it means that you will browse the internet using the remote site. Let's say you are in London and you're trying to connect to Manchester. When you connect with PPTP or L2TP, all traffic, let's say you go to Facebook, YouTube, will go through the tunnel. In most cases you don't want that, that's why it makes sense to remove it. For some VPNs, a firewall can decide and tell your PC, don't use it, use it, and so on. Sometimes it's called split tunneling. I will leave it because my firewall will do it for me. That's all we have to do to connect. Let's give it a try then. Go here, click connect. It asks for a username and password. Do you remember it was Wi-Fi with my password? And I click OK. It's trying to connect. Let's look at the logs. Over here. Please note, phase 1 IKE process done. That's a good sign. It means that we negotiated everything that we need. We should see a message that the Wi-Fi user has been allowed to connect. We should see that in a moment. It took a while, and Windows managed to connect. L2TP VPN authentication is MSCHAP, and encryption we use AES-256. That's really, really good. Most people go for AES-128. We received an IP address 172.16.2.190. Yeah, and that is our destination IP address. Let's check the logs. That's what I wanted to see. On this device you can go to L2TP over IPsec and you can see username, assigned IP address, public IP address. In this video we talked about PPTP and L2TP. We described what both protocols do, and I showed you how to enable PPTP and L2TP on a Windows 8 PC. Thank you very much.